You are sitting somewhere right now. And without deciding to, without even noticing, you have been breathing this entire time. The breath has been arriving and leaving, like a guest who needs no invitation. It has asked nothing of you. It has not waited for permission. It simply continues, quiet and steady, beneath all your thinking. This is anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing. The oldest instruction, the simplest doorway. Not because breathing is special, but because it is always here. Think of a doorway in a house you know well. You pass through it so many times you stop seeing it. The frame, the threshold, the way light falls across the floor just there. It becomes invisible through familiarity, and yet it remains the way in, the way through. The breath is like this, so ordinary you forget it, so constant it disappears into the background of your life, and yet it is always the threshold, always the way in. Right now, without changing anything, you can notice it. The coolness at the nostrils as air enters, the slight rise of the chest or belly, the pause that sometimes comes at the top, the release, the softening as breath leaves. You do not need to breathe better. You do not need to breathe more deeply or more slowly or with more intention. You are already breathing. You have been breathing since the moment you were born. The body knows how. What you are learning is not how to breathe. What you are learning is how to notice. In the earliest teachings, the Buddha spoke of anapanasati as a complete path, not a beginner's exercise, not something to graduate from, a complete path. He said that if you stayed with the breath, really stayed with it, you would see everything that needed to be seen. Impermanence, the rising and passing of sensation, the way the mind clings and releases, the way suffering is made and unmade, all of it. Visible in breathing, because the breath is not separate from the body, and the body is not separate from feeling, and feeling is not separate from the mind, and the mind is not separate from the world. When you sit and notice breathing, you are not withdrawing from life. You are touching the place where life is actually happening, not in the story about your day, not in the plan for tomorrow, not in the memory or the fear or the hope, but here. In the sensation of this breath, this one, now this one. The doorway does not lead somewhere else, it leads here. You may have tried this before, you may have sat down, determined to watch your breath, and found that within seconds the mind was gone. Thinking about dinner, replaying a conversation, planning, judging, wondering. This is not failure, this is the practice. The breath is patient. It does not leave when you forget it. It waits like that doorway until you return. And you will return. Again and again, 1,000 times in a single sitting. Each return is not a mistake corrected. Each return is the practice itself. You are training attention, not forcing it, not gripping it. Training it the way you might train your eyes to see in dim light, gently, with patience, allowing. The breath does not demand your attention. It does not punish you for leaving. It simply continues. And when you remember, when you turn back, it is there, still arriving, still leaving. In this way, the breath becomes a teacher of kindness. You learn that you can forget and return. Forget and return, that the returning matters more than the perfection. That awareness is not about control, it is about willingness, the willingness to come back, to meet what is here, to pass through the doorway again. And each time you return, you see a little more clearly, not because the breath has changed, but because your attention has steadied. The way a pond settles when the wind stops, the surface clears. You begin to see what was always there beneath. The texture of breathing, the small variations, the way the inhale is never quite the same twice. The way the exhale sometimes sighs, sometimes releases sharply, sometimes trails away into stillness. You are not watching an idea of breath. You are meeting breath as it actually is, particular, specific, alive. This is the doorway opening, not into somewhere else, into here, into the only moment that has ever existed, the one where breath is happening, where the body is sitting, where sound is arriving at the ear, where awareness is awake. You do not need to go looking for peace. You do not need to manufacture calm. You need only to notice what is already occurring, the breath arriving and leaving, the threshold always present, the way in waiting. We spend so much time looking for the right technique, the perfect posture, the ideal time of day, a teacher who knows the secret. We believe that somewhere, in some tradition or system, there is a method that will finally work for us. And while we search, the breath continues, in and out, without waiting for permission. The Buddha spoke of anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, not as an advanced practice, but as the simplest doorway. It requires no special knowledge, no initiation. The breath is always arriving, always departing. It asks nothing of you. You do not need to deserve it or understand it. You do not need to be calm first, or clear, or concentrated. The breath is already here. This is a door that never locks, waiting in plain sight. We walk past it 1,000 times, looking for something more impressive. We think the entrance to awareness must be hidden, guarded, difficult to find. But it stands open in the middle of the room. Every moment, every breath, the same threshold. The problem is not that we lack access. The problem is that we overlook what is ordinary. We have been taught to value complexity. Elaborate instructions feel more trustworthy than simple ones. A practice that requires effort seems more legitimate than one that asks only attention. So we add layers. We seek out breathing techniques with counts and holds and visualizations. We turn the breath into a project, but the breath is not a project, it is a fact. It moves through you whether you notice or not. It does not improve with your attention, and it does not fail without it. It simply continues. And in that continuity, there is an invitation, not to control, but to meet. When you notice 3 breaths without changing them, something shifts. Not dramatically, not permanently, but for those 3 cycles, you are present with what is already happening. You are not trying to make the breath deeper or slower or more refined. You are not using it to achieve a state. You are simply there, sensing the movement, the coolness of the nostrils, the rise of the chest or belly, the small pause between in and out. 3 breaths, that is all. Not 3 perfect breaths, not 3 deep breaths, just 3 breaths as they are. If the first one is shallow, you notice that. If the second one is uneven, you notice that. If the third one disappears halfway through because your attention wandered, you notice that too. The practice is not in controlling the breath. It is in meeting it. This is the doorway the Buddha pointed to, not because breath is sacred, but because it is always available. You cannot leave it behind. You cannot forget to bring it. Wherever you are, the breath is there, in the middle of a conversation, in a moment of fear, in the long stretch of a sleepless night. The door stands open. We think we need to prepare ourselves before we can practice. We tell ourselves we will start when we are less busy, less distracted, less troubled. But the breath does not wait for ideal conditions. It moves through chaos and calm with the same steady rhythm. It does not require you to be ready. It is already here, and so the practice is already possible. Notice 3 breaths without changing them. This is not a test. There is no correct way to do it. You are not trying to prove anything or achieve anything. You are simply turning your attention towards something that is already happening. The breath is not a tool you pick up. It is a process you join. When you meet the breath this way, you begin to see how often you are elsewhere. Not because you are broken or distracted by nature, but because the mind moves. It reaches forward into planning. It doubles back into memory. It spins stories about what should be different. And in all that movement, the breath continues. Steady, present, unchanged by your absence. The door that never locks is also the door you can return to, again and again. not because you failed the first time, but because return is the practice. You do not need to stay with the breath for hours. You do not need to build some unshakable concentration. You simply notice 3 breaths. Then, later, 3 more. Each time, the same threshold. Each time, the same simplicity. The breath is always arriving, always departing. It asks nothing of you. And in that asking nothing, it offers everything. A place to begin, a place to return, a door that stands open, waiting in plain sight. We say the word breath 1,000 times before we ever feel it once. It is the most familiar stranger. It has moved through us since the first moment. It will move through us until the last. And yet we treat it like furniture, something present but unseen, necessary but unnoticed. This is not a failure. This is just how attention works when left to itself. It rushes toward what is loud, what is urgent, what demands response. The breath makes no demands. It simply continues. Anapanasati begins with a single instruction, so plain it sounds almost too simple. Know the long breath as long. Know the short breath as short. Not to change it, not to improve it, just to know it. This is not poetry. This is precision. When you sit and turn your attention toward breathing, you may find at first that nothing happens. You think about breath, you remember breath, you have ideas about breath. But the breath itself, the actual sensation of air meeting body, remains somehow out of reach, like trying to remember a dream that has already faded. Water does not force its way through sand. It moves slowly, finding the spaces between grains, filling what is open, passing through what allows passage. Attention works the same way. It cannot be shoved into the body, it seeps. So you begin not with effort, but with location. You ask a quiet question. Where does breath touch? For some, it is the nostrils, a coolness on the in-breath, a warmth on the out-breath, a faint tickle at the rim of the nostril or just inside, where the air first meets skin. For others, it is the chest, the rise and fall, the stretch of ribs, the slight pressure as the lungs expand and release. For still others, it is the belly, the soft swell on the in-breath, the gentle collapse on the out-breath, a rhythm like a tide. None of these is better, none is more correct. The question is not where breath should be felt, but where it is felt, right now, in this body, in this moment. You place attention there, not tightly, not with force. You let it rest the way you might rest your hand on a table present, but not gripping. At first, the sensation may flicker in and out. You feel it, then you lose it. You return, then it vanishes again. This is not a problem. This is the beginning. Water does not fill sand all at once. It seeps grain by grain until the ground is soft enough to hold it. You are learning something the mind has forgotten. That sensation is not thought. That feeling is not idea. That the body speaks in a language quieter than words, and attention must slow down to hear it. When you notice the breath is long, you do not announce it, you do not congratulate yourself, you simply know it. The knowing is enough. When you notice the breath is short, you do not judge it. You do not try to lengthen it, you simply know it. The knowing is enough. This is the practice, not breath control, not breath improvement, just breath awareness. The difference is everything. Because once you can feel the breath, really feel it, not think about it, you have found the simplest doorway. You have located a place where the body and the mind meet without argument, where experience is direct, where nothing needs to be added or taken away. The breath does not care if you are calm or anxious. It does not wait for you to be ready. It continues. And in that continuation, there is something steady. Not because the breath is always the same, it is not, but because it is always present. You may find that one location becomes clearer than the others. The coolness at the nostril sharpens, or the rise of the belly becomes unmistakable. When this happens, let attention settle there, not forever, not as a rule, just for now. This is not about achieving a state. This is about noticing what is already happening. The breath has been moving all along. You are simply learning to feel it move. And in that feeling, something shifts. Not dramatically, not all at once, but grain by grain, the ground becomes softer. Attention seeps in. The body becomes less of an idea and more of a place you actually inhabit. The breath touches the nostril. You feel it. That is enough. The breath does not need your help. It moved through you before you woke this morning. It will continue after you've forgotten you were watching it. And yet, the moment we turn attention toward breathing, something in us reaches for the reins. We try to make it deeper, smoother, more rhythmic, as though the breath were incomplete without our guidance. This is where the practice begins to tangle. A cat sits on a windowsill. A leaf falls past the glass. The cat's eyes follow, steady and soft. It does not try to slow the leaf or speed it along. It does not wish the leaf were falling differently. It watches. The path of the leaf and the gaze of the cat meet without interference. When we sit to observe the breath, we are being asked to meet it the same way, not to improve it, not to demonstrate our skill at breathing, just to see it as it already is. Breathing in, there is only breathing in. Breathing out, there is only breathing out. This teaching sounds almost too simple, but simplicity is not the same as ease, because what arises almost immediately is the sense that the breath should be other than it is. Shallow becomes wrong. Uneven becomes a problem to fix. We begin adjusting without even noticing we've started. This is craving in a very quiet form. Not craving for something dramatic, not hunger or ambition. Just the subtle insistence that this moment, this breath, would be better if we shaped it. The mind moves toward control, the way water moves downhill. It feels natural, helpful even. But it pulls us out of contact with what is actually happening. The breath you are trying to perfect is not the breath that is breathing. One is an idea, the other is alive. When you notice yourself adjusting, you have not failed. You have simply seen the habit clearly. And in that seeing, something loosens. You do not need to stop the adjustment with force. You do not need to scold yourself back into stillness. You only need to notice that it happened. The noticing itself is the practice. Let one breath be exactly as it comes, without improvement. Not every breath, not the whole sit, just one. One breath that arrives short and you let it be short. One breath that feels tight and you do not try to soften it. One breath that seems unremarkable and you meet it without wishing it were more interesting. This is not resignation, it is accuracy. The cat does not lose interest when the leaf falls slowly. It does not look away when the leaf tumbles in an awkward spiral. It follows what is there. The quality of attention does not depend on the quality of the object. In the same way, your attention does not require a perfect breath to land on. It only requires honesty. The breath that is happening right now, however it is happening, is enough to meet. What we discover when we stop interfering is that the breath has its own intelligence. It adjusts to effort and rest without our instruction. It responds to emotion, to temperature, to the angle of the body. It does all of this whether we are watching or not. Our job is not to manage it. Our job is to notice it. And in noticing, we begin to see something deeper. The impulse to control the breath is the same impulse that reaches into every other corner of life. The same hand that tries to smooth the breath also tries to smooth conversations, outcomes, feelings. It is not wrong to want things to go well. But when we mistake control for care, we lose touch with what is actually unfolding. The breath becomes a place to practice letting go of that mistake, not letting go of attention, letting go of correction. You can feel the difference in the body. When you are controlling the breath, there is a faint tension, a sense of holding the shape of it. When you are simply with the breath, the body softens. The breath moves through space that is already open. This is not a technique you master, it is a return you make, again and again. Each time the hand of craving reaches for the breath, you see it. Each time you see it, the grip softens a little. Not because you forced it to, because you stopped feeding it with belief. The cat does not think about watching, it watches. And when the leaf is gone, the watching remains, ready for whatever comes next. Breathing in, there is only breathing in. Breathing out, there is only breathing out. The breath does not ask you to be different, it only asks you to be here. The breath moves in, the breath moves out. And somewhere between the second breath and the third, the mind is gone. Not dramatically, not with fanfare, just gone. Thinking about dinner, or a conversation from yesterday, or the faint sound of traffic outside. And then there's a moment's small quiet when you notice you've drifted. This is where most people believe they've failed. The Buddha taught something different. He said the mind will leave 1,000 times. Your work is to bring it back 1,001. Not as punishment, not as proof of discipline, just as the next natural thing. A shepherd knows this. When a sheep wanders from the pasture, the shepherd doesn't scold it, doesn't question whether they're a good shepherd, doesn't wonder if the sheep is broken. The shepherd simply walks over, staff in hand, and guides the animal back, gently, without drama, because wandering is what sheep do, and thinking is what minds do. The practice of anapanasati mindfulness of breathing is not about forcing the mind to stay. It's about noticing when it leaves and returning, again and again, without the story that something has gone wrong. You sit. You bring attention to the breath. The coolness at the nostrils, or the rise and fall of the chest, or the soft expansion of the belly. You don't need to control the breath. You're not trying to breathe better, you're just noticing the breathing is happening. And then the mind drifts. Maybe it's a memory, maybe it's a plan, maybe it's just a vague sense of restlessness, a feeling that you should be doing something else. The content doesn't matter. What matters is the moment you notice, that small flicker of awareness that says, I'm not with the breath anymore. That noticing is not failure. That noticing is the practice. The shepherd doesn't wait until all the sheep have wandered off before acting. The moment one strays, there's a gentle correction. No anger, no frustration, just a quiet turning back toward the pasture. This is what you do with attention. The moment you notice it has drifted, you guide it back, not with force, not with judgment, just with the same gentle persistence the shepherd uses. You return to the breath, not to the idea of the breath, not to the word breath in your mind, but to the actual sensation, the texture of it, the rhythm, the way it moves without you having to make it move. And then, a few breaths later, the mind drifts again. This is not a sign that you're doing it wrong. This is the practice. The mind drifts. You notice, you return. The mind drifts. You notice, you return. 1,000 times, if that's what it takes. Each return is a moment of clear seeing. You're not forcing the mind to behave. You're training it to recognize when it has wandered, and to come back without the weight of shame or frustration. This is a different kind of strength. Not the strength of control, but the strength of patience. The breath doesn't judge you when you forget it. It keeps moving, in and out, whether you're paying attention or not. It's always there, waiting, not demanding, not disappointed, just there. And so you practice returning. Not because you're supposed to, not because someone told you it's good for you, but because returning is the only way to learn what returning feels like. At first, it might feel mechanical, stiff, like you're following instructions. But over time, something shifts. The shepherd doesn't think about guiding the sheep back. After years of tending the flock, the movement becomes natural. The staff lifts, the steps follow, the sheep returns, no internal debate, no second guessing, just the quiet rhythm of care. This is what happens with the breath. You drift, you notice, you return. And slowly, the returning becomes less like a correction and more like a homecoming. Not because you've mastered anything, not because the mind has stopped wandering, but because you've stopped treating the wandering as a problem. The mind wanders because that's its nature. Attention drifts because it's light, mobile, easily caught by movement and sound and memory. This isn't a flaw, it's just how attention works. The practice is not to change this, the practice is to notice it and to return without adding the second layer of judgment. When you sit tomorrow, the mind will wander again, and the day after that, and the day after that. This is not a failure of the practice, this is the practice. Each time you notice and return, you're strengthening something quiet and essential. Not control, not perfection, just the simple capacity to come back. And eventually, the returning stops feeling like work. It starts to feel like rest. You sit down and turn your attention to the breath. For a moment it feels steady. You notice the cool air entering, the warmth leaving. You think, this is it, this is what I'll follow. Then something shifts. The breath becomes shallow, or it deepens without your asking, or it catches slightly in the chest, and there's a flicker of concern. You wonder if you're doing it wrong, or if something is off. The steadiness you thought you found has already moved. We expect the breath to be a fixed thing, a reliable anchor, something that stays put while everything else spins. But the breath is not a stone at the bottom of a river. It is more like clouds reshaping across an afternoon sky. One moment soft and wide, the next pulled thin by wind you cannot see. This is not a problem with your practice. This is the nature of all formations. Even the breath arises and passes. Even this most intimate movement of the body is subject to change. When you first notice the breath shifting, there can be a subtle tightening, a sense that it should return to what it was, that the deeper breath was better, that the shallow one is less useful. But the breath does not owe you consistency. It responds to temperature, to thought, to the angle of your spine, to whether you ate recently or slept well. It moves through textures you did not choose. If you watch closely, you begin to see that breath is not one thing. It is a process unfolding in real time. Sometimes it enters smoothly. Sometimes it stutters, sometimes it pauses longer than expected at the top or bottom of the cycle. These are not deviations. They are the breath being what it is in this moment. The practice here is simple. Watch how breath changes texture, depth and rhythm on its own. Do not try to even it out. Do not reach for a preferred state. Just notice when it thins, notice when it thickens, notice when it seems to hesitate or rush. This is not passive observation, it is active seeing. You are learning to meet the breath as it actually is, not as you imagine it should be. And in doing so, you are meeting impermanence directly, not as an idea, but as lived experience. You might notice that when the breath is deep and full, there is a subtle pleasure, a sense of rightness. And when it becomes tight or uneven, there is a faint aversion, a wish for it to return to the other state. This is the mind looking for something to hold, something stable. But the breath will not stay deep, and it will not stay shallow. It moves like clouds reshaping across the sky, and no amount of wishing changes that. What happens when you stop asking the breath to be different? When you let the shallow breath be shallow and the deep breath be deep, without preference, there is a softening, not in the breath itself, but in the way you meet it. The tightness around the change begins to ease. You may find that the breath becomes more interesting this way. You start to notice small details, the slight coolness at the nostrils, the way the belly rises in one rhythm and the chest in another, the pause between breaths that you never noticed before because you were too busy trying to make the next breath arrive sooner. This is insight arising through attention. You are not learning something new about the breath. You are seeing what was always true, that it has never been still, that it has always been moving, shifting, responding, and that your discomfort was never with the breath itself, but with the expectation that it should remain the same. Sit with this for a while. Let the breath be shallow when it is shallow. Let it deepen when it deepens. Do not chase the deep breath. Do not resist the shallow one. Just watch the process unfold. Notice the texture, notice the rhythm, notice how it changes without your permission. This is not about achieving a perfect breath. It is about seeing breath as it is. A formation that arises and passes, a process, not an object. And in seeing this, you are seeing something larger, that all experience moves this way, that nothing you encounter will hold still, that the attempt to freeze what is already flowing is the root of so much struggle. The breath will keep changing. Let it. And notice what remains when you stop asking it to be other than it is. We sit down to watch the breath, and immediately there is someone watching. A self perched somewhere behind the eyes, observing the rise and fall of the chest. This feels natural, obvious even. But if you stay with the breath long enough, something begins to shift. The watcher becomes less solid. The boundary between observer and observed starts to blur. This is not a philosophical idea. It is something you can notice directly, in the body, right now. When you look for the one who breathes, you find only breathing. Not a person doing the breathing, not a controller managing the inhale and exhale. Just the movement itself, happening on its own, like wind moving through an empty room. No one is pushing it. No one is deciding when it enters or when it leaves. The room does not own the wind. The wind does not belong to the room. They meet, and there is movement. The breath is like this. It arrives, it fills the space of the body, it departs. And somewhere in the middle, we insert ourselves. We say, I am breathing. But if you pause and look closely, where is this I that breathes? Is it in the lungs? They expand and contract, but they do not decide to do so. Is it in the diaphragm? It moves, but it does not think. Is it in the mind that notices the breath? But the mind is also just noticing. It does not create the breath. It does not control it. So where is the breather? This is not a riddle to solve with thought. It is a question to hold lightly while you sit. You do not need to find an answer. You only need to stay with the question long enough to notice what happens. Ask quietly, where does the breath begin? Where does it end? Does it start at the nostrils? Or does it start in the air outside the body before it is drawn in? Does it end when the lungs are full? Or does it end when the air leaves the body and rejoins the atmosphere? If you follow the breath all the way in and all the way out, you cannot find a clear edge. The breath does not belong to you. It passes through you. This is not a loss. It is not a diminishment. It is simply what is happening. When you sit with this, the feeling of being a separate self begins to soften. Not because you are trying to make it soften, not because you are practicing non-self as a technique, but because you are seeing directly that the breath does not need a breather. It breathes itself. Think of the wind again. It moves through the room, and the room does not say, I am winding. The room is simply the space through which the wind passes. The body is like this. The breath moves through it. Sensations arise in it. Thoughts appear in it. But none of these things require a permanent separate self to make them happen. This does not mean you disappear. It means the story of separation begins to loosen. You can test this right now. Sit quietly and place your attention on the breath. Do not try to control it. Do not try to breathe in any particular way. Just notice it. Notice the cool air entering the nostrils. Notice the slight pause at the top of the inhale. Notice the warm air leaving. Now ask, who is noticing? Do not answer with words, just look. Is there a solid, unchanging observer sitting behind the breath? Or is there just the act of noticing, arising and passing, like everything else? If you stay with this long enough, the boundary between self and breath becomes unclear. You are not watching the breath from a distance. You are not separate from it. There is just breathing, just noticing, just this moment unfolding. The wind moves through the empty room, and the room does not hold on to it. The breath moves through the body, and the body does not own it. When you see this clearly, something releases. Not dramatically, not all at once, but quietly, like a hand that has been clenched for a long time finally opening. You do not need to believe this. You do not need to accept it as doctrine. You only need to sit with the breath and see what is actually happening. Not what you think should be happening, not what the teachings say should be happening, just what is. The breath continues. It has never stopped. It does not need you to make it happen. It simply happens. And in that simple happening, the illusion of a separate breather begins to fade. You sit down and immediately begin adjusting the posture, the hands, the angle of your chin. You arrange yourself like furniture in a room, trying to find the correct position for breath to happen properly. But the breath is already happening. It arrived before you sat down. It will continue after you stand. It does not wait for your permission or your perfect alignment. Ocean waves arrive without instruction. They do not rehearse their rhythm on the shore. They do not pause to consider whether they are doing it right. The water rises, the water falls, and the sand receives each wave exactly as it comes. Your breath moves the same way. In, out, in, out. No one taught your lungs this pattern. No manual was required. Before you could speak or think or know your own name, breath was already caring for you. Yet somewhere along the way, you learned to manage it, to control it, to make it perform. You inhale deeply because you think you should. You hold because you believe that steadiness requires effort. You measure each breath against some invisible standard, checking whether it is deep enough, slow enough, correct enough. The body knows how to breathe. You need only stop interfering. This is not a technique, it is a recognition. When you sit now, just for 5 minutes, you are not trying to breathe well. You are not trying to breathe mindfully. You are simply noticing that breath is already breathing you. The diaphragm drops, the ribs expand, air enters, air leaves. None of this waits for your instruction. You might notice the coolness at your nostrils. You might feel the slight rise of your chest. You might sense the pause between breaths, that small stillness before the next wave arrives. These are not things you create, they are things you meet. The ocean does not try to make waves. The waves are what the ocean does when it meets the shore. Your breath is what your body does when it meets this moment. If you find yourself controlling the rhythm, that is fine. Just notice it. Notice the tightness in your throat when you try to make the breath slower. Notice the slight holding when you want it to be deeper. And then, gently, see if you can let the next breath arrive on its own. Not because you should. Not because letting go is the right way to meditate. But because the breath has been managing itself all along. And perhaps it does not need your help. 5 minutes. That is all. You sit. You notice breath moving. You notice when you take over. You notice when you let go. There is no goal here except to see what is already true. The breath comes in like a wave reaching the sand. It goes out like water returning to the sea. In the space between, there is nothing you need to do. This is not emptiness. This is fullness without effort. You may feel the urge to deepen your breath, to make it more spiritual, more significant. That urge is just another wave. It arrives, it passes. The breath continues beneath it, steady and unimpressed. You may feel frustration when the breath seems shallow or uneven. That frustration is also a wave. It too will recede if you do not grab it. The practice is simple. Sit. Let breath breathe you. 5 minutes. Not 5 minutes of perfect awareness, not 5 minutes of unbroken focus, just 5 minutes of allowing the body to do what it has always known how to do. When the 5 minutes end, you may notice something, not a grand insight, not a sudden clarity, just a small shift. Perhaps the breath feels less like a task. Perhaps your chest feels less tight. Perhaps there is a quiet trust beginning to form, a trust that breath will continue whether you monitor it or not. The ocean does not doubt its ability to make waves. It does not practice. It does not improve. It simply meets the shore again and again with the same ancient rhythm. Your breath is no different. It has been caring for you since your first moment. It will care for you until your last. In between, you can let it do what it knows how to do. Sit. Notice. Let the breath breathe you. 5 minutes is enough to remember what you have always known. There is a place in the body that holds the day. You might feel it now. A tightness across the shoulders, a weight in the chest, a small knot somewhere that has been there so long you almost forgot to notice. When we meet these sensations, the first impulse is to push them away, to shift position, to distract ourselves, to breathe harder as if we could force the tension to leave. But tension does not leave by force. It tightens further when we resist it. The Buddha offered something quieter. Where there is tension, bring breath. Where there is breath, tension softens. Not because breath is a tool for fixing, but because breath meets what is present without demanding it change. Think of warm water slowly loosening a clenched fist. The water does not pry the fingers open. It does not argue with the grip. It simply surrounds. It waits. And in that warmth, the hand begins to remember it can open. This is anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, not as a technique to master, but as the simplest doorway into what is already here. Most of us carry tightness without realizing how much energy it takes to maintain. The body braces. The breath becomes shallow. We hold ourselves in patterns that once served a purpose, and now they simply repeat. When we finally notice, the instinct is to fix it immediately, to stretch, to release, to make it go away. But this is still aversion, a subtler form, but aversion nonetheless. We are still saying, this should not be here. What if instead you brought breath to the place that is tight, not to dissolve it, not to change it, just to be with it? To let the breath arrive there the way warm water arrives at a closed hand, gently, without insistence. Find one area now. It does not need to be the worst one. It does not need to be dramatic, just a place where you feel some holding. Maybe the jaw, maybe the belly, maybe a small band of tension across the forehead. Let your attention rest there, not pressing in, not analyzing, just noticing. This is what tightness feels like. This is where it lives. Now bring breath. Not by forcing air into that area, but by allowing your awareness to include both the breath and the tightness at the same time. You breathe in and you feel the tightness. You breathe out and you feel the tightness. The breath does not push. It simply moves nearby. You might notice the tightness does not want to be felt. It might intensify for a moment. This is normal. The body has been holding for a reason, and now you are asking it to be seen. There may be resistance. There may be a small flare of discomfort, as if the tension is saying, leave me alone. This is the moment most of us turn away. We decide the practice is not working, or we try harder, breathing more forcefully, willing the tension to release. But neither of these is the path. The path is to stay, to let the breath continue, to meet the resistance not with more force, but with curiosity. What does this tightness feel like exactly? Is it hot or cool? Does it pulse or stay still? Does it have edges, or does it blur into the surrounding tissue? You are not trying to fix anything, you are learning the texture of your own holding. As you breathe, something begins to shift, not because you made it shift, but because breath, by its nature, softens. Like warm water around a clenched fist, it does not demand, it offers, and in that offering the body begins to trust. The grip loosens just slightly. Not all at once, not permanently, but enough to feel the difference between holding and allowing. This is not a dramatic release. You will not suddenly feel weightless, but you might notice the tightness is no longer solid. It has become something you can be with, rather than something you must escape. The practice is simple, one area, one breath at a time. When you notice you have drifted into thinking or into trying to make something happen, you return. You bring breath back to the place that is tight. You let the breath be warm water. You let the tension be the fist. You do not rush the opening. Some days the tension will soften quickly. Other days it will not soften at all. This does not mean you are doing it wrong. It means the body is showing you what it needs to show you. Today, it needs to remain tight. Tomorrow, it might let go. Your task is not to control the outcome. Your task is to bring breath and to stay. When you can meet resistance with curiosity instead of force, the doorway opens, not because you pushed through, but because you stopped pushing. And in that stopping, the breath does what it has always done. It moves, it softens. It reminds the body it does not have to hold so hard. You walk through a field in the dark. The fog is thick. You cannot see the path ahead, cannot see where you came from. There is only the lantern in your hand. Its light is small. It reaches only a few steps forward, but it is steady. And it is enough. This is what the breath offers, not a map of the entire landscape, not a promise that confusion will lift. Only this, a small circle of light, a place to stand, right now. We search for safety in distant places. We think clarity will come when we understand more, when we finally solve the problem, when the fog clears. We wait for the right conditions. We look for something larger, something more reliable than this simple rising and falling in the chest. But the breath does not wait for better circumstances. It does not require understanding. It is here when you are lost, here when you are afraid, here when you do not know what to do next. In the Theravada tradition, this practice is called anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing. It is not complex. It is not reserved for those who have studied or prepared. It is the simplest doorway, the one that is always open. When confusion comes, the mind reaches outward. It grasps for answers. It replays the past, rehearses the future, builds arguments, searches for proof. This reaching feels necessary. It feels like the only way forward. But often it only deepens the fog. The teaching is direct. In times of confusion, return to the breath. It is always home. Not because the breath will solve what troubles you, not because it will make the fog disappear, but because it gives you a place to rest. A place that does not depend on knowing what comes next. You might notice this when you are overwhelmed. The mind is loud. Thoughts pile on thoughts. The body tightens. Everything feels urgent. And somewhere beneath all of it, the breath continues. Quiet, unhurried, untroubled by what the mind is doing. This is not a metaphor. This is what is happening. The breath does not wait for permission. It does not need you to be calm before it arrives. It is already here. When you place attention on the breath, even for 3 full cycles, something shifts. Not always dramatically, not always immediately, but the attention has somewhere to land. The lantern steadies in your hand. The small circle of light becomes visible again. 1 breath in, 1 breath out. That is the first. You do not need to control it. You do not need to breathe deeply or slowly or perfectly. You only need to notice. To feel the air as it enters, to feel the pause, to feel the release. The second breath, the same. Simple contact, the sensation of breathing, the body doing what it has always done. The third breath, still here, still steady. This is the practice. not as a technique to master, not as a solution to apply, but as a return, a coming back to what does not require you to be different than you are. The fog does not clear because you notice your breath. The confusion does not vanish, but you are no longer lost in the same way. You have found the lantern again. You remember it was always in your hand. This is what makes the breath reliable. Not that it fixes anything, but that it is always present, always accessible. It does not ask you to be ready. It does not wait until you are calm or clear or certain. You can return to it in the middle of a conversation, in the middle of worry, in the middle of not knowing. You can return to it 1,000 times in a single hour. Each return is complete. Each return is enough. The breath becomes an anchor, not because it holds you in place, but because it gives you a reference point, a way to know where you are. When everything else is moving, when thoughts are spinning, when the ground feels unstable, the breath is still here, still simple, still doing what it does. 3 breaths. That is all. Not as a rule, not as a requirement, but as an invitation. When the fog is thick and you cannot see ahead, you do not need to see ahead. You only need the next step. And the breath lights that step. It is small, it is steady, it is enough. The breath is always here. That may sound obvious, but notice how we live. We hold the idea that practice happens in certain postures, at certain times, on a cushion or a chair with eyes closed and legs arranged. We think of breath awareness as something we do when we sit down to do it. The rest of the day, we imagine, is something else, living, working, moving through the world. And in that division, we lose what was never actually separate. There is a threshold in your home. You cross dozens of times each day. The doorway between kitchen and hallway, perhaps, or the step from bedroom to bath. You don't announce it. You don't prepare. Your foot lifts, moves forward, lands. The threshold passes beneath you, unmarked, unnoticed. It is crossed so often it becomes invisible. And yet it remains exactly what it is. A place of passage, a meeting of 2 spaces, always present whether you see it or not. The breath is like this. It does not wait for formal practice. It does not require announcement. While you wash a cup under warm water, feeling the smooth ceramic and the slight resistance of soap, the breath moves, in and out. While you walk from one room to another, the breath walks with you. While you speak, it shapes your words. While you listen, it continues its quiet rhythm beneath your attention. The threshold is always there. We simply stop seeing it. In Zen, there is no special breathing and ordinary breathing. There is only breathing. The same breath that fills your lungs during Zazen fills them when you tie your shoes. The same awareness that notices the cool air at your nostrils during meditation can notice it while you wait for water to boil. Practice, in this sense, never left. We left practice by deciding it belonged somewhere else. This is not about effort. It is about recognition. You are not being asked to control your breath all day, or monitor it constantly, or turn every moment into a meditation session. That would be exhausting, and it would miss the point entirely. The breath does not need you to manage it. It has been breathing you since you were born. What shifts is simply this: you remember it is there. Equanimity enters here quietly. You do not need the breath to be deep or smooth or special. You do not need to be calm when you notice it. The breath might be shallow while you feel anxious. It might be quick while you hurry. It might be uneven while you speak with some irritation in your voice. All of this is fine. The practice is not to fix the breath. The practice is to meet it as it is, in the middle of whatever is happening. Try this just once today. Not as a formal sit, not as a scheduled practice. During something ordinary. While you open a door, notice the breath. While you pick up your phone, notice the breath. While you pour water, or pull on a jacket, or glance out a window, just once, let your attention touch the fact that you are breathing. No need to change it. No need to do anything with it. Just notice the threshold is under your foot. What begins to happen over time is that the boundary we drew starts to soften. Formal practice and informal life are not two separate countries. They are one terrain, and the breath moves through all of it. When you sit in stillness, you are practicing with the same breath that will carry you through your afternoon. When you move through your afternoon, you are breathing with the same body that will return to stillness. The distinction we made was useful once perhaps to help us begin, but it was never true. This does not mean meditation becomes less important. It means it becomes more woven in. The cushion or the chair is where we learn to see clearly, where we cultivate steadiness and patience, where we sit with what arises without running. That matters. But the breath we find there is not locked in that room. It follows us, or rather, we finally notice it has been following us all along. So, the invitation is small. Not to overhaul your day, not to become a different person. Just to catch the breath once in passing, like noticing the threshold beneath your foot as you step from one room into another. It was always there. You are simply seeing it again. And in that one moment of seeing, the separation begins to dissolve. Breath and life, practice and living, awareness and action, they were never apart. We only thought they were. The breath is still here. It has been here the entire time. It did not arrive when you began listening, and it will not leave when you stop. It moves through you now, as it moved through you before you knew what breath was, before you had language for rising and falling, before you learned the word for chest or belly or pause. You did not create this doorway, you only found it again. Anapanasati is not a practice you master, it is a returning. Each time you notice the breath, you are not building skill. You are remembering something that never left. The breath does not improve. It does not become more spiritual or more pure. It simply continues, and you meet it where it is. There will be days when the breath feels close, almost vivid. The sensations are clear, the rhythm is steady. You may think, I am doing this well. And there will be days when the breath is faint, almost hidden beneath noise and distraction. You may think, I have lost it. Both days are the same doorway. The breath does not judge your attention, it waits. You do not need to make the breath interesting. You do not need to make it profound. The mind will try. It will look for meaning in the length of the inhale, the texture of the pause, the quality of the exhale. It will ask, what does this breath mean? And the breath will simply continue. Meaning is something the mind adds. The breath itself is only movement and stillness over and over without commentary. When you sit with the breath long enough, you begin to notice how much you have been asking it to be something else. You wanted it to calm you, to fix you, to prove that you are progressing. And the breath never agreed to any of that. It only offered to be noticed. That is the gift, not transformation, not transcendence, just presence. The simplest doorway is also the most honest one. It does not promise you a destination. It does not tell you that on the other side of enough breaths you will be free. It only says, here, now, this. And if you step through, you find that the doorway does not lead somewhere else. It leads here, more deeply here. You may return to the breath 1,000 times in a single sitting. You may return to it 1,000 times in a single day. This is not failure. This is the practice. The breath does not mind being forgotten. It does not hold a grudge. It is there when you remember, and it is there when you forget. It teaches you quietly that forgetting is part of the path. Returning is part of the path. There is no version of this where you stop needing to return. So you sit, you notice. You wonder, you return, and in that returning something softens, not because you have achieved anything, but because you have stopped demanding that the breath be more than breath. You have stopped asking yourself to be more than this body, breathing in this moment. The breath will be with you when you finish listening to this. It will be with you when you lie down tonight. It will be with you tomorrow, in the middle of a conversation, in the middle of a task, in the middle of forgetting. It is the one doorway you carry everywhere. You do not need to remember where you put it. You only need to notice it is open. If you would like, there is more to explore. Another reflection, another thread. But there is no urgency. The breath is not going anywhere. Before you go, or before you stay, let this question rest with you. Not to answer now, not to solve, just to hold lightly, the way you might hold a stone in your palm and feel its weight. If the breath is always here, always available, always simple, what have you been waiting for?